Thank you, Chairman Smith. I now recognize Mr. Hern from Oklahoma.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this important meeting. Mr. Plowgian, I want to piggyback a little bit off what the chairman had to talk about, but I'm glad to hear you've been here for a year and a half, so we know we're talking to the person that would have the answers. So I appreciate the chairman asking you for resolve in the conversations that you've specifically had or your team has had with Congress, or with Ways and Means, specifically the tax writing committee that you're speaking to today. You mentioned that the chairman mentioned about responding in writing. In November of last year, Chairman or Ranking Member Brady and I wrote a letter together asking you for modeling data and estimates on how U.S. companies and federal tax revenue would be impacted by the OECD Pillar 1 agreement. And how does the Treasury plan to achieve ratification of an MLC by December 31st without sharing essential information with the Congress that has not been involved in the Treasury's unilateral negotiations? I know you say you've talked about this. I mean, the response to the November letter by myself and Ranking Member Brady, and then again from myself solely in March of this year, I mean, the responses could be, what do you want for Christmas? They were not responding to the letters at all. So I'm not sure who is writing you letters. I find it hard to believe, until you prove us all differently, that you've been dialoguing with the committee that has jurisdiction over this in Congress. I'm asking you again, please share these projections with the Ways and Means Committee, and will you commit to sharing this information? I'll be nice, but there wasn't a time frame put on it, but within 30 days. That's not too much to ask.
Congressman, first of all, I want to say that Pillar 1 cannot be approved without congressional support.
We're keenly aware of that, but I'm just asking, why couldn't you respond to the letters in November and March of this year?
There are open issues that I mentioned in the Pillar 1 discussions, and specifically those open issues, as mentioned in the outcome statement last week that was issued by the Inclusive Framework, relate to issues that have to do with the economics of Pillar 1. And specifically issues around how the Pillar 1 taxing right is coordinated with the existing international tax system. So, for example, there are issues around how much should existing taxes offset the Pillar 1 taxing right. There are questions about how withholding taxes imposed by jurisdictions should be treated. There are questions about what is the threshold for residual profits on which the Pillar 1 taxing right should be made. And so the Pillar 1 agreement is not complete, and we are concerned that providing estimates would not provide Congress with a complete picture of the Pillar 1 negotiations.
So, Mr. Plowgian, again, following up on what the chairman said about China, and actually I asked Secretary Yellen this specifically sitting in your seat when she was here last. What assurances do we have that China is going to follow these model rules to do the things that you're talking about as you related to the UTPR? What are the punishment? Secretary Yellen went to China and said the world is big enough for both of us to play in a level playing field. Do we honestly believe, based on all relationship right now with China, that they're going to play by the rules when their whole mission in life, as stated by the president of their country, the general secretary of the Communist Chinese people, has said time and time again that their goal in life is to become the #1 nation in the world, both economically and militarily? Do we honestly think that their goal in life is to be on a level playing field with us?
Well, we know, Congressman, as you suggest, that China does often try to undermine or circumvent international institutions, international partnerships and agreements, and we go into negotiations with our eyes open about that.
So we don't have any way to be punitive to that. I just want to say a couple last things here, and then I will yield back. The EU Tax Observatory released an EU-funded report this month that goes into detail on the country-by-country breakdown of covered groups and their Amount A profits. Treasury's argument that any release of impact analysis or modeling data would undermine current negotiation is a facade and is not sufficient for the tax writers on this committee. Do you have a better reason for not complying with my request? You just alluded to the fact that there was was incomplete, but you didn't share it quite like that. Do you have any way of fulfilling my request?
Once again, there are open issues in the Pillar 1 negotiations. Once we can resolve those issues, we plan to share estimates with Congress.
And you will follow up in writing to the questions that we asked in those letters, both Kevin Brady and myself, and then again me. I would really appreciate those in writing. As the chairman said, I yield back.